I'm all over the Knicks at +7 here. OG Anunoby's injury is devastating to New York, and that's the reason you're getting 7 points for them. But going on the road, I still have confidence in this team because they're loaded with big game players. The 7-point spread with the Nova Knicks right now, it seems like, wouldn't say a lock by any means. I never like to use that language, but it's a very good line because Jalen Brunson is stepping up big. Dante DiVincenzo stepping up big. Josh Hart is playing great right now. I mean, Brunson only played 8 minutes in the first half of the last game, still scored 29 points on 11 of 18 from the field. He's been fantastic. And then you're getting more and more out of Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo as the games go on. They're playing way better than they did in the regular season right now, which is huge and a sign of a championship caliber basketball team. Hart averaged 9.4 points per game and 6.3 points per game in 3 contests against Indiana in the regular season. He had 24 and 19 in the first 2 games of the series. And then you look at DiVincenzo, he's got 3 consecutive games of 23 plus points. He's averaged 15 and a half in the regular season. So you're getting an uptick from both those guys. So even though OG is not going to play in this game, you still have a really good lineup there with the Nova Knicks. And then Tyrese Halliburton, he's a big story, too, coming into this game because he might have had a good box score from game 2. He still didn't play well in the second half, and then he was horrendous in game 1. So you're not getting those high leverage guys stepping up for the Indiana Pacers. You're getting it for the New York Knicks, and that's why I would take them +7 here. Well, they were embarrassed by the Florida Panthers in game 2 of the series. So right now, I wouldn't say I'm overly confident in Boston over a 7-game series, but there were some moments in that game that do give me a little hope that they can pull out not only game 3, but try to find a way to get this series to go 7 and win it. When we look at the Boston Bruins, they were outshot by 18 shots. They lost 6-1 in game 2. And we kind of knew this was going to happen at some point in the series just because Florida is a better team. They're more explosive. They're better in the defensive zone. They're better in the offensive zone right now. The one area that Boston did have the advantage was in the net. And Jeremy Swayman just didn't play his best game. The defense didn't really help him out. And then Linus Ullmark came in and wasn't very good for Boston. But the Bruins didn't stop fighting. David Pastrnak going after Matthew Tkachuk, that made me pretty excited as a Boston bettor because it shows me that they're not going to back down. I think that kind of mentality, that kind of swagger is going to carry throughout this team moving into game 3 at home. They need to be better. They need to get pucks on the net. Sergei Bobrovsky is very vulnerable to Boston. He's only got an .871 save percentage against them this year, so I think that's going to make the difference if they can get pucks on the net. Yeah, they're doing a great job with it, too. I still haven't recovered from game 1. I was an Oilers bettor. That one hurt. I actually fell asleep late. It was on the East Coast, so we're watching the game taking place on the West Coast, and I thought that I was going to wake up with money in my account, and that did not happen because Edmonton had the collapse of the century in that one. You should never cough up a 4-1 lead in the NHL. It just should not happen. And what makes it worse is Vancouver scored twice in the final 6 minutes of the game to ultimately win that one. It was just a massive breakdown, and even though Edmonton came out hot, they didn't do anything in the later stages of the game, and that's where the big-time players need to come through. Connor McDavid didn't do that. We can talk about him in a minute. But the first thing I need to talk about is Stuart Skinner. He was very bad in the net, and he's been owned by the Canucks this season. Just an .830 save percentage against them. The defense needs to be better. They can't allow free passes into the slot because it's going to hurt Edmonton. And Connor McDavid, of course, the star, the guy who makes all the money, he needs to come out and score. Having 0 shots on goal in 24 minutes is unacceptable. You're paid way too much money to not put the puck on net if you are Connor McDavid. And even though Edmonton still, came out hot, they only put 18 shots on the net. That's just unacceptable, especially in this part of the playoffs when you should be fired up and ready to go. I think they're going to be much better. They did give up a game. They coughed one up, but they have not beaten Vancouver yet this season. So they really need to set the tone early and then sustain it throughout the game. As long as Skinner can hold up in the net, I think they're going to be just fine, and I think they respond well. That's just wild to me. I'd like to see first 5. I can't imagine first 5 you're up because Patrick Corbin. Probably not. Yeah, Patrick Corbin's a guy who gets absolutely shelled. It's like a national holiday for bettors. You always fade Patrick Corbin. I'm going to fade him for the full game here. That stat makes me think I should be fading him just first 5. So I am a little scared after you give me that. But still, I like the Red Sox -1.5 in this baseball game. They were not good this week in Atlanta. I did think they were going to respond well in game 2 against the Braves, against Chris Sale, but Sale shut them down and Nick Pivetta was horrendous. So what are you going to do? They should respond here, and it's a great opportunity to do it against Patrick Corbin, who what bettors call an auto fade. He's 0-3 with a 6.45 ERA and a 1.81 whip. He has no strikeout ability. He's given up 53 hits in 37.2 innings. And the Red Sox have their ace going in Tanner Houck. Houck's got a 1.99 ERA, a .97 WHIP. The Red Sox challenged him in the offseason to become that good starting pitcher. He's found whatever it takes, and he's really delivering this year. It's been fun to watch. The Red Sox are only slightly better than Washington on offense, which is kind of concerning here. They do live and die by the long ball, and they have a tendency to strike out, but they shouldn't have any fears of striking out against Patrick Corbin. Be loose at the plate, leads to runs, and get out to an early lead here. That should sustain throughout the game. You know what's crazy too, Greg, about the Oakland Athletics? They're a very good home run hitting team. They're just not a team that can chip around.
They lead the league in home runs on the road this year, actually, to your point.
I know. It's crazy to think, too. That's another stat like the Patrick Corbin one. I would have never expected that the Athletics were such a powerful team, but when you actually look at the numbers, they're hitting almost as well as the Dodgers are, who spends millions and millions of dollars on players. So that's crazy to think. But I'm going to go with the under here. I'm going to fade that home run trend. I think Brian Wu is good enough to keep the ball in the yard. One of the brightest 24-year-old arms in the game, did start the season on the injured list because of elbow inflammation. A little concerning betting on him coming off that, but still, he had a 4.21 ERA in 18 games last season, 93 strikeouts and 87.2 innings. And also looking at this under, you got Paul Blackburn on the mound for the Oakland Athletics. 3-1 record, 3 ERA, 1.02 WHIP. Not a big strikeout pitcher, does an excellent job keeping the ball down the zone, though, and both guys should have a command of the strike zone. Oakland has a 299 team OBP compared to Seattle at 302. Neither offense has been special. So as long as Wu can keep the ball in the yard, I don't see either Seattle or Oakland, finding ways to manufacture runs with singles and doubles and bunts and playing small ball. I just don't see that happening here. So going to lean under on 7.5 with these two teams. It's amazing the difference in his home pitching versus away pitching. The splits are wild. At home, he's got a .82 ERA. On the road, he's got a 5.92 ERA this season. And that's kind of been the trajectory of him over his career. At Oracle, he's fantastic, and that's why you got to capitalize with under bets here. His opponent batting average, too, nearly 100 points lower at home than it is on the road. And the Reds have the worst batting average in baseball right now. They're 17th in runs scored. They're 20th in homers. So Cincinnati isn't really an offense that I'm super afraid of. They're pretty much a team that you're going to find in the bottom third of every key offensive category. For the Giants, they're 21st in home runs. They're not really a team that can manufacture runs as well. And they're in the bottom third of baseball as well in nearly every key offensive category. My one concern here is Andrew Abbott a little bit. Again, there's some flaws with his game, but he is 1-4 this season because the Reds don't have a great offense. Overall, though, he does give his team a chance to win most of the time. 3.32 ERA with a 1.16 WHIP. Coming off an 8 strikeout performance against the Baltimore Orioles over 5 innings. Now, he did give up a lot of hits in that game. He found ways to get out of jams, and he tends to find those ways to get out of jams. But that's my one fear. San Francisco can get a little momentum. They might put some runs on the board. However, I still like the under here. You need to lean on Logan Webb at home getting good outs, and you need to lean on both offenses not being good as they really haven't been this season.